Vice President of Student Achievement. Today's agenda covers an updated framework of New York State Education Department's Portrait of a Graduate, which is closely approaching reality for our students. Chief Botticelli will be presenting today, and then we'll take questions after that. Thank you.
All right, I'll say thank you, Vice President Zulich, and you are totally fine. I don't have any words to say, just to say welcome to our board members as well as our staff members. Chief Botticelli, the floor is yours. I cannot see everybody online. Is Chief Botticelli available? Okay, anybody see her? Okay, no problem. This is pretty much unusual. Cabinet member, somebody please.
Can you hear her? Can you hear me?
Yes. She's here in person. Just give her about 30 seconds. Just to take a deep breath here, and then she will be presenting.
Yeah. Can they flip the card?
It depends. Which one is yours? They said
that one right there. All right.
That's it.
Well, I am happy tonight to talk a little bit about New York Inspires. You may or may not have heard a lot about what's happening at the state level, but I'm going to talk today about 4 transformations. So if you can hit the next slide, please. Next slide, please. There we go. So there are 4 transformations happening at the state level that are going to impact us over the next few years. So I'll talk a little bit today about the Portrait of a Graduate, the redefinition of credits that are happening that are going to impact us about the next year or so, the sunsetting of our diploma assessment requirements, and moving to 1 high school diploma. So those are the 4 big transformations that are part of New York Inspires. So a lot of this work is based on what came out of the Blue Ribbon Commission a few years back. So they gave some recommendations to the state, and the state has adopted a number of those. So I'm taking these a little out of sequence just to do it a little more sequentially. So we're going to start actually with transformation 2, which is redefining credits and learning experiences. Next slide. Can you go one more, please? Okay. So there's a few things that are going to happen in terms of our credits. Right now, you need 22 credits to graduate, and you need a number of Regents exams. They are going to be phasing in a new requirement that all students beginning in 2027, 2028, so those entering 9th grade at that time, will have to take 1 credit of CTE. Right now, CTE is optional. So it's not retroactive. It's for these kids coming into 9th in the school year 27, 28, but they'll be responsible for taking 1 credit of CTE. They're also prioritizing our state standards. So they're not going to eliminate any standards, but they are going to give us a list of the most important standards to make sure that we're hitting those instructionally. They're reformatting the standards, and they're going to provide guidance by the summer of 2027. And then they're changing some of the requirements that we currently use in usually math and science. So we're going to be implementing financial literacy K-12 and climate science K-12. So if you look at the chart below, personal finance, beginning with the 26-27 school year, we're going to be implementing that in grades 9 to 12 and 5 to 8. We'll phase in the lower grades a little bit later. So currently we offer personal finance in various courses. So the goal from the state is that we phase it in by the grade band. So by the end of your 5th to 8th grade year, or by the end of your 9th to 12th grade, by that end of that grade band, you have to have taken some personal finance. And then eventually it'll be K-4 as well. And then beginning in 27-28, we'll be phasing in climate science. So climate education will be required, again, beginning in the upper grades, and then later moving to K-4. So you don't have to take it every year, and it doesn't have to be one course. It could be phased into a number of different courses, but we will be responsible for reviewing our curriculum and ensuring that every student in the future will have personal finance, financial literacy, and climate education as part of their core instruction moving up through the high school. The last thing they're doing as part of this transformation is redefining how we talk about credits. So I mentioned right now to graduate, you need 22 credits in high school, but they're looking at changing the emphasis from seat time, so meaning how many hours you spend in class, to proficiency. So in the future, you're going to be able to demonstrate your mastery of the standards in different ways, not just by taking a particular class, but you also might do something in CTE. Maybe you're doing internships, work-based learning, different projects across the curriculum. So all those things will be available to students to demonstrate their mastery as opposed to just completing a particular course. So we don't have a lot of guidance on that piece yet, but it's being fleshed out at the state, and they are definitely taking input. So we'll be working closely to make sure that we're in line. So that's transformation number 2. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about transformation 3, which is sunsetting the diploma graduation requirements. Next 2 slides, please. Okay. So there's a few things happening here. The chart's a little busy, but when you talk about a cohort, that's the year a student starts 9th grade. So if they start 9th grade school year 23-24, they are the 2023 cohort, because that's the first time they set foot in our high schools. So anytime we're talking about cohorts, you're looking at that initial school entry. So cohort 2023, like the prior classes, so our current 11th graders and 12th graders, the current diploma requirements are in effect. They have the same types of diplomas, but they were eligible for exemptions due to major life events. So if there was a death of a very close family member the day they were supposed to take the Regents exam, for example, they might qualify for an exemption for that particular exam. So that's our current 11th and 12th graders. Otherwise, the normal requirements apply to those students. Then when you look at cohorts 2024, 2025, and 2026, which would be our current 8th, 9th, and 10th graders, there are some bigger changes in the horizon. So they're moving to 1 diploma, and it will still contain advanced designation as a seal of distinction, or it will contain advanced designation. Right now, there are 3 diplomas. You can get a local, a Regents, or a Regents with advanced designation. They're combining those all into 1 diploma moving forward, and there'll be seals attached or notes of distinction on those in the future, but it'll be 1 diploma type. So there won't be students across the state with a different type of diploma than another student. The second thing they're doing is those credit requirements that we mentioned, phasing in CTE, looking at financial literacy and climate education. And then this is the one that will probably have the biggest impact on the district. They are decoupling the Regents exams from graduation. So what does that mean? Right now, to graduate, the student needs to pass 5 Regents exams. So they need to have the 2 social studies, Global 10 and US history. They need to have a math, they need to have a science, and they need to have English. So they have to pass all 5 plus earn their credits in order to graduate. The state is moving to decouple the Regents exams from that requirement. So they still need us to take the exams, but passing them will no longer determine graduation. Does that make sense? If anybody has a question, you feel free to jump in. So they are going to decouple graduation requirements. You'll still need credits, and but the exams, you could potentially not pass a particular exam and still pass, in other words, graduate. So they're separating the exams from the requirement. So that's going to affect the current 8th, 9th, and 10th graders. So it'll be retroactive for some of our students. However, and this is a huge however, until any of this is passed by the Board of Regents, we are still required to have students taking the exams and passing the exams. Nothing goes into effect until the Board of Regents officially approves it. So at this point, they have not approved it. It's just under discussion. So it's going to come up at the Board of Regents in the future. So until that point in time, we have to operate the way we have been operating, that all students need those Regents exams to graduate. Okay. So then cohorts 2027 and 2028, again, they'll be with one diploma and they'll be refining what the seals and endorsements look like. They'll still have that new credit requirement, and those students will never have to have the Regents count toward graduation. So they'll enter without that as a requirement. And then finally, cohort 2029 and beyond, which is our current 5th graders and backwards. So they'll have the one diploma. They will also have a statewide transcript. So not only will there be one diploma type, but everyone will have to use the same transcript type as well. So it'll be dictated to us by the state. And those students will have to demonstrate proficiency not only in our current learning standards, but also in something called the Portrait of a Graduate, which we're going to talk about. So they'll be accountable for demonstrating proficiency in the standards and achieving the Portrait of a Graduate. They will still have to take the Regents exams, so that requirement will never go away. But they don't need to pass them to graduate. Okay. So the state was clear. Again, everything remains in effect until this till the board has adopted this. And they also encouraged us to maintain our pathways. So right now, you could take 4 exams and maybe a different type of assessment, and they call it a pathway, and you can graduate that way. They said those are still going to be encouraged at our local level because it's a great way to demonstrate proficiency. So the pathways won't change. Next slide, please. So this is right off the state website. So we will still be required to administer Regents exams. That will never change. It's one way that students can demonstrate proficiency, right? So if you pass an exam, the assumption is that you're proficient in that particular subject and you've demonstrated mastery. But also ESSA requires it. So at the federal level, we are required to administer these exams, and that has not changed. So even though students might not need to pass them in the future, they still need to sit for them. So the requirement at our end doesn't change. They will always need to take these exams. It's just to the student, they may not need them to pass to graduate. They'll still sit for those tests. Next slide, please. Actually, second one. So we're going to talk a little bit about what the Portrait of a Graduate is. So you're going to see a graphic on the next slide, please. You're going to see a graphic which talks about particular attributes that they want to see every student possess in order to graduate. So they want us to achieve the portrait attributes in order to pass a student through to graduation. So they will have to demonstrate proficiency in the standards, which is usually through coursework and or internships and other things like that, as well as demonstrating these particular attributes. So we don't have a lot of details yet about specifics related to what we could use to count toward an attribute, although we have some ideas about things that we currently do that can be adapted. For example, the seal of civic readiness or the seal of biliteracy. Many of our students earn those already as an endorsement. Those could be the types of things that will count toward demonstrating critical thinking or being an effective communicator. So what we envision is that every student will be able to demonstrate these attributes through projects or internships or coursework or other things that they encounter during their high school experience. So again, the portrait really highlights particular attributes that will make everyone be reflective and a global citizen, a communicator, things that we want to see in our students. So to graduate in the future, students will demonstrate that they've achieved the portrait attributes, and they will also have to demonstrate that they've achieved the learning standards. Next slide, please. So here are some samples of things that could potentially demonstrate that you've achieved the portrait. So they may have work-based or service-based learning experiences through CTE. There may be capstone experiences. So in some of our classes, students actually have to create a capstone project in order to pass the course. So that could be something that we look toward as we're developing our portrait. Early college programs could demonstrate that students are proficient. Credentials or the seals, I mentioned the seal of biliteracy, the seal of civic readiness. What would a student do to demonstrate that they are civically engaged or that they are biliterate? Different high school courses can count toward this, obviously. Approved CTE sequences that we currently offer. Participation in the arts, so a sequence of arts courses, possibly culminating in either an AP exam or some type of portfolio or performance. Passing the existing Regents exams or AP exams. Those types of things can count toward a student's attributes in the portrait of a graduate. We are expecting more guidance from the state, but they did share that this type of thing would be usable at our end for the students. So I can kind of envision us developing a portfolio for each student, and they can almost check off little boxes to show how they've become a communicator or a global citizen. So maybe a rubric-based type of experience. And then finally, transformation 4 is moving to one New York State high school diploma. So I mentioned we currently have 3 types. They're going to be moving just towards one statewide diploma, and then it will have particular endorsements to demonstrate that a student will maybe completed a CTE sequence or maybe followed an art pathway. Perhaps they achieved the seal of biliteracy. So those will be shared with us from the state. So that the one diploma begins in the fall of 2027. And then the last slide, if you can keep moving forward, please, Admin. One more, 2 more. Thank you, to the timeline. So this just lays out everything that's happening over the next few years. So in 24-25, last year, they finalized the portrait of a graduate and adopted it at the Board of Regents. They also offered us those particular exemptions for major life events. This current year, they are releasing details of the new credit requirements. So we'll learn a little bit more about their what they expect related to climate science and financial literacy. And we are aware of the CTE course that'll be phased in. Next year, 26-27, they'll release the prioritized learning standards with guidance. Eventually, if you look over to fall of 2029, they will be developing new assessments aligned to those prioritized learning standards. So that's a few years off. Also, next year, they're going to release the portrait of a graduate rubrics and guidance for us so that we can make sure that we're really fleshing out what it will look like to be a Buffalo Public School student who's achieved the portrait. And we'll have the financial literacy and climate education requirements in effect. By 27-28, again, one diploma. They will have sunsetted the diploma assessment requirements, meaning that they've completely decoupled passing the Regents from graduation. They will have redefined what the seals and endorsements mean. And they'll have finalized rubrics and guidance for the learning standards that they've reformatted. By 28-29, they will have shared best practices because they have been working across the state to collect examples of pilots and things that have been effective in other districts. So they'll share those out. And then by fall of 2029, we will have the new transcripts that we're using across the state, and that will include the portrait of a graduate. And then finally, those new assessments. So it's a lot of information and it's kind of spread out over time. So it's definitely a slow phase in, but as Dr. Mabenga has made clear, we need to start working on this now. So we are going to be meeting with different stakeholders to get feedback on what they think we might include in our sort of portfolio for a portrait of a graduate. What does that look like for a BPS student? What types of things do we currently offer that we can expand? what new things can we bring on? And what, what could we consider that maybe we haven't thought of yet that would demonstrate how a student is proficient in the learning standards and or the different attributes of the portrait. So I would imagine you probably have some questions.
Thank you, Chief Botticelli. Maybe we'll start with online. I'll just go through. President Evans Brown, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Thank you. Vice President Everhart? There.
Thank you, Vice President Zulich, and thank you, Chief Botticelli. So the current math curriculum, does it include any financial literacy and personal finance education?
We actually have it spread out a little bit across grade levels. We do have one course that was developed through a grant that does encompass financial literacy. But what we realize is that not every student takes it because it's an elective. So we're going to have to be more strategic in how we fold this into our different courses. A lot of it will actually fit into CTE. We're going to have that required course at the high school level. It's very likely that it'll be our current CFM course, which does encompass financial literacy. So we might just need to beef that up a little bit. And then at the middle grades, our CTE program also addresses that. We'll have to add something into our elementary grades.
Yeah. And so it would just be, they would just take one credit of CTE.
There's one required credit. They could definitely take more.
And then that credit would be 1 year long, 1 school year long?
Currently, CFM is sort of our introductory CTE course, and then that is a full school year.
Okay. This is just ideas in the sky, but what power do we have to kind of reshape the math curriculum in order to make it more finance-based, more relevant to what students deal with every day as far as like money? Because ideally, in my mind, I'm thinking like in the lower grades, they should be learning about dollars and cents, and then the middle grades, maybe banking and finances, and then stocks and bonds in high school. So what power do we have over influence in the state to kind of shift over to a more money-based, more practical, what kids actually need and use? Yeah, what power do we have to kind of like influence that?
We can't change the state standards, but we can always add to our own curriculum once we've met the state standards within the curriculum.
Mhm.
We do have the math course. There could be a point in time where we decide that is the mandatory course. It's going to depend on the specifics that they release related to financial literacy.
Right. Okay, and as far as the one diploma, the for all, so Regents eventually, is that what we're looking for? We're looking for the Regents department to allow us to get rid of Regents diplomas altogether?
I don't know what the new diploma will entail exactly, but right now we have the local diploma.
Mhm.
We have the Regents and then Regents with advanced designation, and then actually with honors as well. They're going to move to one diploma. They haven't really shared exactly what that will look like. But
Okay.
since the Regents is being decoupled, it probably won't be a Regents diploma.
Mhm. Okay, thank you, Chief Botticelli.
You're welcome.
Oh, and Chairwoman Rodriguez? Any questions?
Thank you. Chief Botticelli, I had several, one of which is, are you aware of JA's involvement with the district in the past, junior achievement?
I know we have worked with them, but I don't know specifics.
Okay, because I think that they might be a good stakeholder to consider. I taught JA, and to Madam Vice President's point, there's a lot of practical information there, and it's also a nationally reviewed curriculum. My other question was, I thought your presentation was fantastic, and because I am who I am, I Googled, and it looks like the state has some communication available for school boards, for educators, and for students themselves about the portrait of a student. Were we thinking about utilizing those when we share, Chief, that their changes are being made?
So I actually shared the one for school boards with you. It should be in the
Awesome.
folder. And the other ones would obviously be for different stakeholders. So when we begin to roll out a little bit more specific of a platform for the portrait, those are definitely things we want to share.
Okay,
Yours-
and then
Go ahead.
sorry. My last question was relative to the civic engagement piece. I spent 5 years at SUNY Buffalo State in their Office of Civic Engagement. I'm just excited for that language to be used and suggesting that they might be some of the stakeholders that we consider as we continue to develop kind of the district's view. Thank you so much.
Terrific, thank you.
Chairman Hawkins?
Yes, I have a few questions here. Thank you, Vice President, and Ms. Bonicelli on great presentation.
Thank you.
I do have a set of questions though. How does the portrait really define critical thinking?
Right now, they haven't fleshed that out for us, but I think there's a lot of things that we can consider. So for example, research projects, those capstones, I think that would be a great way to go. Tests would also potentially contribute to critical thinking. When we come together as a stakeholder group, we have a great opportunity to really think through what we mean when we say critical thinking in BPS.
Okay, and in the world that we live in now, such as a digital world, right? How does that portrait really address, the digital component and media literacy?
The state is actually coming out with AI guidance, I believe, which we haven't seen yet. So I'm not sure how they expect it to fold in, but media literacy is always really important. We do a lot of lessons, especially at the younger grades, regarding digital literacy to make sure that kids understand exactly what social media is and what their digital footprint is, things like that. So that could be something that we weave into courses if we want. It could be a course that we create at the high school level.
How does this cohort really promotes equity and inclusion?
Well, actually, everything is built around the state's equity and inclusion framework, the culturally responsive sustaining education framework, which a lot of it actually came from the work done in Buffalo. So they looked at the work that had happened a few years back, and they adopted large portions of that at the state level. And then all of our curriculum has to encompass that type of learning. So we want it to be equitable for all our students, to see themselves represented in our curriculum, not just visually, but also the types of documents they're reading, et cetera. So everything we do should actually have that embedded.
Now, if a kid doesn't need to take the test and don't take the test, what are ramifications
if they don't sit for the regions?
If they just don't sit for the regions?
I don't know that there is a ramification for the particular student at this point. The district could potentially have consequences for accountability because we have a participation rate that we need to meet. So I think as a committee, again, we need to talk about why there's benefits to this. And it is actually the most obvious pathway for many students. So passing those Regents exams is what they're used to, right? That's how we've structured our educational system. So it's not a bad thing to keep the Regents alive and make sure that kids are prepared for it. So for some of them, that will be a great option. Other students may say, I'm really comfortable in the humanities, for example, but I'd rather do a project to meet some of the science standards or something. So we're going to talk with kids about what that can look like. But we would want every student to take the exam because if they pass, that already covers one of the demonstrations of learning. So.
Okay. Yeah. How would the educators really assess the progress?
We're going to have to come up with very detailed rubrics to make sure that we do it consistently across the district. So for example, if people are doing a capstone project, we would want to have a rubric available to them so that they were gauging competence and proficiency the same way at one school as another school. There are examples available to us. The Internationals Network, which partners with Lafayette, has done a lot of work aligned to that. Previously, some of their schools have been exempted from Regents exams because they developed very stringent rubrics that kids used when they did projects. So we have access to those to review. It might be something that we decide to adopt.
Now, what is climate education? Is that an offspring of economics, social studies, or what is?
It'll probably end up being in our science courses the most. It doesn't mean it wouldn't fit into social studies, for example. We actually have a climate science elective right now, the impact of climate change on economics and things like that. But we would be fitting this into other courses throughout a student's career. Earth science actually meets many of those standards right now. Earth and space, sorry.
I'm awesome.
Paul Bowen?
Thank you, Ms. Botticelli. It's always harder presenting in front of adults than children. I just had a question about the diploma, but we don't know what that one diploma is going to look like yet, right?
Well, because they decoupled the Regents,
Yeah.
won't be the same diploma we consider now.
Yeah.
But I don't know specifics yet.
All right.
We do know that they're going to encourage endorsements and seals. So they want us to try to achieve the seal of biliteracy and the seal of civic readiness and get a CTE endorsement. They're encouraging that. So I would imagine those will be on the eventual transcript and potentially on the diplomas.
All right. Thank you.
Honorable Wright, any questions?
Hello, how you doing? Can y'all hear
Oh,
me?
yes, I see the hand now.
Okay, how y'all doing?
Great, how are you?
Okay, Chief, I have two questions for you that I was jotting down as you was talking. One of them is how does these shifts ensure that we are not lowering our expectations for our students, especially our Black, Brown, and high need students?
Mhm.
And also, my second question is, what professional development and safeguards are in place to ensure consistency across the schools?
Okay, good questions. So I'll address consistency after the first, basically equity. So we want to make sure that we have consistent rubrics and consistent expectations across the schools. So we would be developing those. Nothing, like I said, there are some examples that we can use, but we don't have anything currently adopted other than a few school based like capstone projects. So for example, if some of our students taking College Board AP classes, they might develop a capstone project as an outcome of their course. We want to encourage more of that. Like National History Day is something we've been discussing. It actually has very solid rubrics and kids have to create different projects, but they get to choose what the topic is. So it appeals to student voice while still holding students accountable across the board for achieving specific standards. So again, even once the portrait is adopted, the students still have to demonstrate academic proficiency. It's just, it will depend on what that looks like. I can tell you, I personally would have probably preferred to write a paper than take an exam. So that might have been, like if I were a student now, that might be something I would choose to demonstrate my proficiency. But there are a lot of different ways. So students in those CTE tracks, those are very rigorous. They take really rigorous tests at the end to become certified. So there is a lot of options available. There are a lot of options available for students, even if it's not the traditional Regents exam. They'll still be able to demonstrate their proficiency. And then in terms of professional development, once we've established what we are considering counts towards demonstration of mastery and the portrait of a graduate, then we will be rolling out PD across the district. So every teacher would have to have the same understanding. We'd have to norm them on the rubrics. They would have to have professional development related to the projects themselves, for example, just to make sure that they are assessing them adequately and fairly. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you answered it. Thank you. I had one more, but it's kind of like tied to the first two. I was going to ask you, how are we ensuring that these changes keep our graduates competitive beyond, prepared and competitive beyond Buffalo?
Well, the good news is that it'll be consistent across the state. So everyone will be participating in the same types of requirements. So we'll have to help industry understand what that looks like. So I think right now, for example, CTE, coming out of our CTE programs with the sequence and the CDOS and having passed some of the tests like the NOCD, for example, our students are very appealing to many employers because they have had work-based learning experience, they've had mentoring, they've taken very difficult assessments, they've proven themselves with hands-on work. So I think just making the community aware of what is happening will be important, just so they understand that our kids are extremely employable. And just because they don't have a Regents credit on their transcript, it does not mean that they're not proficient in all the standards.
Thank you. I appreciate you so much.
Thank you. Honorable McEcken.
I think board member Scott had his hand up first, so I can wait.
Oh, okay, on the left.
Yeah.
All right, Honorable Scott.
That's all right. Board member Rebecca. I'll go quick. So first of all, Chief Botticelli, that was very informative. As a parent with a 10th grader, that was helpful to hear. And I'm wondering, with some of the very informative YouTube videos that we've been putting out lately, if your presentation maybe could be captured, edited just for your presentation and shared widely, because I'm sure there's many other parents like myself that are wondering how these changes are going to impact their children, especially when they're in the 8th, 9th, and 10th grade cohort. My question, you mentioned that for the 8th and 9th and 10th graders, that they're going to decouple the Regents exams from the requirement to graduate. It doesn't seem as if we will have the alternative pathways to demonstrate proficiency developed. How will they, I guess, be assessed on proficiency or be able to demonstrate proficiency if they don't pass some of those Regents exams and they're decoupled, or is that still to be determined?
I think we probably need a little more information at the state level regarding that. So they're still going to have to take the assessments, and obviously many of them will be able to demonstrate proficiency on those. The portrait won't have begun at that point. So some of it will be just on the new CTE requirement and other credit requirements. But I look forward to having conversations with the state to get a little more clarity.
Thank you very much.
Cindy?
I think that leaves me. Are you good? Larry, are you good?
Yes, I am all
Okay.
set. Thank
All
you.
right, thank you. Mine isn't so much questions per se. I want to thank you for the presentation, and I actually am hopeful that since this is kind of a moving target at this point and new information's coming out and we're learning more things, that you'll be back to present, as this continues to unfold. And I think also, helpful maybe in the next presentation if we're ready for that, or at some point in the future, a little bit or a focus in the presentation about what this rollout will be to community and how we can assist in any way and what that rollout looks like, getting the word out. I think we've heard a few suggestions throughout the evening, but that's really all I kind of wanted to say, because I know there's a lot still forthcoming.
That leaves me. I was wondering, will IB be a seal of distinction, or?
Oh, IB? I don't know. I guess
Okay.
that's a good question to ask.
It's very specific.
Yeah, I don't know that they have, if they've decided everything at this point. Like AP exams would be similar. I don't know how that would appear. It would also affect the transcript.
And then today, is there a challenge with some students that just aren't good test takers when they take the Regents exam? Like they have passed the class, but they're not able to pass the exam.
There's always students that might have passed the coursework, but struggle when they sit for the actual assessment.
Okay, and this is exciting to have some different avenues for our high school students to pursue. As far as competitiveness, we did hear from the commissioner. She was saying in some ways having these separate, having Regents, non-Regents is a disadvantage for our students looking to go to college. So if another state doesn't have a Regents, they're not looking at that.
Very
but
few states have.
yeah, so if our student here happened to do a not Regents, they're like, oh, why not? So like it puts them at a disadvantage.
The majority of the states actually do not have an exit assessment. I mean, everyone has to give the tests based on ESSA. They established that federally, but most states do not count it toward graduation. We're one of the few that has been.
And then I'm really bad with acronyms. I did just look up career in financial management, a CFM. I have to write that down for myself. But there are so many like really exciting careers to pursue. I know some people that do environmental law. That's pretty exciting. Well, thank you for that introduction to the profile of a graduate, Chief Botticelli.
Oh, I think there
Oh, sorry.
As far as like city honors, which sets a high expectation on academics, how would that affect city honors with the new cohorts coming in with 2027?
We do have to figure a few things out in terms of their curriculum, because they don't currently mandate a CTE course, and they have a very full course of work that the kids have to achieve. So I'm not sure yet how that will fit into their overall scope and sequence. It's something we actually started talking about internally, because the mandate of that course might they'll have to make some shifts. Otherwise, there's something else we don't know yet. So for example, if we say that a particular course counts toward the 9 to 12 band, but what if our kids take it in 8? We don't know yet if the state will count it toward the middle school band or the high school band. And if they count it toward the high school band, then you have to meet it in 7th grade instead of 8th grade. So there's a number of nuances that they haven't fleshed out for us yet. And CTE being one of them at City Honors. But there's a number of things they do through the IB program that we might want to adopt district-wide. They have service hours. We have service hours tied to economic and participation in government for many of our seniors, but that might be something that we embed across as part of the portrait. They have an extended essay. It's sort of like a capstone project that every student who participates in the full IB has to do. That could be something that we embed. We could look at our AP course that also has the capstone. So there's a lot of different avenues we have to explore. So actually, I'm looking forward to working with the committee and getting some feedback.
Thank you so much again. Thank you for the thoughtful questions. Thank you, Chairman Hawkins, for yielding your time so that we can finish our unfinished business from last week. I'm going to turn the meeting over to the superintendent, who will introduce our Vice President of Executive Affairs.
All right, thank you. My just last comment here. We really wanted to be proactive, making sure that as we hear in this profile of graduate from the state, that our board was well informed before we can really start really get into the community. So thank you, Chief Botticelli. We still have a lot of things to learn so that we can fine tune our processes here and even getting our business community involved in this process as well. All right, without further ado, I know it's not 5 o'clock yet, but I think we can yield the floor to our Vice President Everhart for the next segment of our session today.
Thank you, Dr. Mubengas. Welcome back to Board Operating Procedures. I am Janita Everhart. I am your chair for Executive Affairs. Last week we had Rodney and Leslie on, and today we have Rodney and Cindy Ellsberg, and they will continue our session. And any questions that you may have, we will address them toward the end. Rodney?
Thank you
Cindy,
very
thank
much.
you.
Thank you. Good evening. I want to briefly connect tonight's conversation to where we left off last week. Last week's work session focused on draft board operating procedures. That document was intentionally a working draft designed to introduce student outcome focused governance concepts and to surface questions about authority, alignment, and where governing expectations should live. You raised some important questions, particularly about legality, consistency with existing bylaws, and what authority the board retains. That feedback was very helpful and very appropriate. Based on what we heard, the coaching team stepped back and asked a different question. What would it look like for these governance concepts to live inside your existing bylaws rather than alongside them? The red line bylaws that we'll be talking about tonight will reflect that shift. They are responsive to your questions and intended to support a new board and a new superintendent with clear governance footing and a focus on student outcomes. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Cindy to help frame how to read this draft guide and guide tonight's discussion and outline how the board may want to take this work moving forward. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Cindy. As I call her, Council Cindy.
Yes. Yes, Council Cindy. I heard that from the last meeting. Council Cindy and Buffalo Cindy. Thank you, Rodney. And I am very excited to be here tonight and glad to be able to join this conversation. While I wasn't able to participate last time, I did review the meeting and the team met. And as Rodney mentioned, we went ahead and and took a lot of that feedback to do exactly what Rodney said, to think about how this would live within your existing bylaws. We heard the questions that were raised, appreciate the thoughtfulness. So first, I did drop a link into the chat. Is everyone able to access the red line bylaws document? If not, please speak up. Okay, great. A few things just to be clear. We are very aware that you're just receiving this now. And so we want you to know a few things. First, it's not a word for word conversion from the document you had last week. And that had some intentionality, because as we started looking at the bylaws, we needed to provide a different level of structure, a different flow, and different wording. Some of the wording needed to be reworked so that it could be consolidated into that document, but the intent and direction are still the same. The form is just different. Second, I want to be clear that this is responsive work. We are fully aware that you are just seeing this for the first time tonight, and we don't expect you to absorb it fully. We're not asking you to make any decisions. This is about orientation. Tonight is about orientation and sense making, and getting some initial feedback to this new format. And third, I want to make very clear that this is your work. Our role as coaches is to bring recommendations based on what we've heard from you on observations, what we see as aligning with becoming more focused on student outcomes. And it's going to be yours to keep, delete, modify, relocate, discard, any of the language. That is a board decision, not an us decision. And then while we have done our best to ensure that this complies with state code and legal requirements, we would always recommend that anything be reviewed by general counsel as a practical step and as a safeguard. So just want to make it clear that we would anticipate that for sure. And then finally, just to clarify what tonight is not. This isn't about adoption. It's not about replacement, not about relitigation of anything in the past. It's about getting solid footing moving forward. I believe Rodney alluded to it at the last session that you are a new board with you have new members, you have a fairly new superintendent. So this is meant to strengthen the board's ability to govern in service of student outcomes. One more thing before we get into it, I also want to talk about and name where this fits into the larger arc of the work that you're doing and that you've committed to doing. We know that a policy diet is still ahead, and that process will give you the opportunity to step back, look across your full policy set, decide what belongs where, what can be delegated, what may be consolidated, and it could potentially lead into a clearer governance handbook. But that is future work. And what we're starting with in this work that you now are on your second session of discussing, it doesn't replace that, but it prepares you for it. Addressing the bylaws and core governance expectations, which we also refer to as those operating procedures, just sets a foundation and gives you clearer expectation, clearer role division between governance and management, and is meant to help with any process confusion. Any questions so far? All right, so because you're just seeing this for the first time tonight, I want to give a suggestion of how to read it right now in this next, in the next amount of time that we have. We have until the top of the hour. Is that accurate? Not the top of this hour, the top of the next hour?
That's correct, Cindy.
Thank you, Vice President Everhart.
Mhm.
So we don't want to think about this as a time to wordsmith or make line by line edits. For wayfinding, I will point you to a few specific places by page number, so you're not just scrolling through the entire document right now. I want you to think about three things while you're reading the sections that I'm going to ask you to read. Where does this clarify the distinction between the board's role and the superintendent's role? Where does this help the board operate more consistently as a governing body rather than as individual members? And where does this strengthen or fail to strengthen the board's focus on student outcomes? So the three areas that I would want you to skim, and I can put it in the chat in a moment, over the next, 10 minutes, are the purpose and board authority language at the front of the document. So on pages 1 and 2. Sections clarifying board and superintendent roles and responsibilities. Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Is there a way you can share your screen?
If you give me 2 minutes,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
trying to make copies for all of you. So just a matter of some.
Okay, thank you. We're not in the chat.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize that there were some of you in the room, or not on Zoom. So what, once you have all the copies, I will repeat the process. Sharing the screen, I could do that, but what I'm going to ask you to do is read on your own. So we'll just make sure that everyone has the time that they need to get to as much of this as possible.
Cindy, do you
So,
mind just pausing for a couple of minutes while we're making
Yep.
copies? Yes.
I will do that.
Thank
While
you.
we're pausing, you bet. While we are at that pause, any questions coming up so far in this process, about anything?
So Cindy, you would like us to review this and then the 4 sections that you're about to point out, and then when will we talk about it again? You'll come back?
Yep, in about 10 minutes, we will, 10 minutes or so. It's just going to be a quick scan and a kind of a first reaction.
Okay.
And then we'll talk about next steps, about further absorption and ability for you all to sit with this.
Cindy, if you
longer.
don't mind,
Yeah.
can you email the document to Lisa so we can make copies?
I can do that.
Yes, please. Thank you. Okay. No, I'm good. I see some board members here. They're taking a quick break. So I think we're doing pretty good with the time. So
Full smile on there.
just make sure everything's going on the mic. So
You asked about I being in an article about IB Capital. That they yanked funding for it.
No, I wrote a social media.
She probably should have. The question is always what would the certification be? Because there are tax standards. But those can go in. There's always been that question. Who's certification?
It's just that advanced language courses. I don't tell I just heard. Oh, okay. We just got into it. It advances language arts.
Yes.
It fits right into language arts. Okay, our scripture reading, writing, check on our site. Yeah, that's neat. That's it. Oh, it's good. She'll make sure it's paperwork or anything. And talk with them.
Let me make sure they got an email.
I'm curious. I think we'll do that.
Especially when that they said all the comments. Media class, kid won't be late for that. Kid, you on time for that class. Yeah. I know. And they'll talk.
Yeah,
It's double or snowball tomorrow, and that's all I can say.
It's not frozen.
Still working out, buddy?
Yeah, yeah. Usually I go to gym at 5 a.m. I'm working.
Where you going? These
Play
guys.
fitness.
Oh, yeah.
Selfie.
Yeah.
That's what true Brian Higgins is doing.
At 5 a.m.
And got a winter hat on.
Oh, God. That's character.
Yeah.
So.
We might go to electrical down this weekend, I'm not sure.
Got a full social calendar there, buddy?
Now what this guy wanted to ski.
Oh, really? You a good skier?
No, I get down the hill.
Mr. Ford, are you related to Eileen?
That's my mother. Yeah. Good. She just left. She was at the swimming.
Okay, I wasn't there, but I love her. She was great to work with.
Yeah, she does the Florida kind who goes. She'll be there. She'll be there about May.
This one I said.
I will, yeah. And I go in, we'll go in February.
Fancy one. Double size
Are
necklace.
you going on all something?
My cousin.
Okay, I went to high school.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, she was in my question. My cousin.
She
Why not?
she's going to the game this weekend.
So I just got a call from Chief Amos. They're back there printing 35 pages per board member. So what they're gonna do is they're gonna send over a email copy and then print it if they want it on their way out. So they'll be coming back out shortly.
Buffalo is 1 degree.
Oh, yeah.
We actually
Is it possible for us to read through this on our own and submit questions through email?
So if I can get screen sharing, perhaps we can just go through it, but I'm not allowed to share my screen.
So I
Dr.
have a
Mubeda?
question. Okay.
Yes.
Would Cindy Ellsburn be able to get screen sharing permissions?
All right. Yes.
Are we also
Thank
gonna
you.
finish the document we didn't last week?
Okay, we'll start over here in a moment once everybody is ready, and I will clarify what this is and what
Yeah, and in
how
the
this
future,
fits.
Cindy, if you can get it to us 24 hours in advance or at least the night before.
Absolutely. This
Thank you.
was an up to the last minute attempt to be responsive, and it took some time, if you can imagine. So it was, but yes, of course.
Thank
In
you.
the future, that would be our ideal.
All right, Cindy, we made you a co-host, so you should have
Oh,
access.
wonderful. Thank
Yeah.
you. Let me make sure I have the right screen up here. And my apologies again for this shift. Right. Make sure. Is everyone able to see this document now?
Yes.
Yes. Can I just ask, I see that you sent this to the executive committee. So Talia and Stefan, you do not have a copy of this?
Lisa just sent it to us, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
And
perfect.
I grabbed it from the chat. And Cindy, sorry, Madam Vice President, one of the things I asked is the guiding question, Cindy, whenever you get a chance, if someone from your team can throw them in the chat, because you seem you're doing a couple of things right now.
Yep, and I did have those on here I'm going to put them in right now. And we'll get back to, I don't know if they have the
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, I think I heard the question asked, are we going to go back to the original document that you started with last time? And right now, the answer is we are not. The reason that we brought forth this red line revision of your bylaws was that our team determined that based on some of your questions and how your policies are currently set up and with your bylaws, that actually showing you where that policy language could live in your current structure might be a valuable place to go with it. Because the original document gave an introduction to the language, to that operating procedure format. However, the truth of the matter is, absent the policy diet, this would be the next logical step to actually set you up with the footing for role clarity and processes that will actually help you get to that work ahead. So while
just
this,
to clarify,
yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, just to clarify real quick. So what we're doing is, are you shifting gears from the board operating procedures to the bylaws? So that's what we're doing now?
Yes, and it is a shift, it is a shift in where that language that was in those operating procedures could live in your current structure. So
Okay.
what you're going to see is is that language from the operating procedures actually merged in to your bylaws. And for example, right here at the beginning about the board's governing role, about listening for vision and values of the community, identifying and adopting policies that reflect the community's vision, referred to as goals, and values referred to as guardrails, and implementing the community's vision and values by delegating operational authority to the superintendent. And so distinguishing the work of governing from the work of managing, or what the board delegates to the superintendent. So what my ask for tonight was, given that this was going to be, or this is the first time that you're seeing it in this format, was going to be to read through just a few sections. That purpose and board authority section at the beginning, then moving to, and we'll close your eyes so you don't get vertigo, moving to this puts a lot of the governance focus in as well, but that there's going to be some other sections, pages 13 through 16. No, I think it was up here. Sorry, I have the page numbers wrong. But
I think it was page 6.
6. Sorry, yes. Okay. So thank you. Thank you. The powers and duties of the board, the governing focus, the role of individual members, and then actually putting the board guardrails that you all have actually already adopted. So this is all a transfer over and showing you where it could live in your bylaws as they currently sit. Another thing that I will transparently point out, because it was not in the operating procedures that were presented last week, but as we went through the bylaws and in concert with the student outcomes focused governance manual, there were a couple of things in the code of conduct that are mentioned in the student outcomes focused governance manual for the code of conduct that we put in there as placeholders, which is about being responsible for the outcomes of students in the entire school system, not just the region where I live or am an elected. And then the recusal from matters involving individuals or organizations who make campaign contributions to me. Again, to make clear, this is anything that you see redlined is for the board to determine whether you keep, delete, modify. Our role here was to make the recommendations to align to the framework and to clarify roles. Any questions coming up for anybody so far? The other piece that I don't think I got through before we paused was that we're not going to ask for any decisions, no wordsmithing. We are going to give you all ample time to sit with these and talk about what next steps could look like. This is the duties of the president of the board. This is the wording is same intent as was in the board operating procedure document, but edited to flow into what was already in your bylaws. That's on page 8. Same thing with duties of the vice presidents of the board, just spelling those out and making a little bit more clarification. And since I can't see you all, please holler if there's anything you need me to stop, pause.
No, this is great. Thank you so much, Cindy. And you said there were 4 sections specifically that you'd like us to take a look at, or you just want us to kind of sift through the whole thing?
Well, I was going to have you look at just a few sections just to get the idea of is this becoming more clear? Where does this add clarity? Where does it need more clarity? Does this look like it is aligning or separating the roles? Is it? I just want to sense make and do some sense making with you all and get you a little orientation to this red line bylaw document so that you have a starting point from which to proceed.
Yes. I think for many of us who have taken the training, it looks good, but it's probably Greek to some of our new board members. Yep. And so
I can keep scrolling through with you.
do you want to just give us those sections that you would like us to look at? What sections would that be?
Sure. Will those on there be able to access it? Or
It was emailed to them.
Okay, perfect. Okay. So I think I put it in the chat, but here, let's look.
Cindy, I think the last one starts on page 30, also not 24. So you'll just want to update those.
Okay. Page 30.
Yep, it starts there and I think it goes into 31 and then we start on page 6 for the other one.
So board superintendent roles and responsibilities, pages.
That is on page 6.
Yep.
Yep.
Thank you. Are you able to see this slide?
Yes, I can see that slide.
Okay. Then I will put that up for everyone to see and then give you some time to go ahead and
it's actually 31 through 34, I think. Sorry, I just scrolled down.
No, I'm sorry.
It's 31 through
I'm glad.
34.
35.
And then it's 6 and 7 for the roles and responsibilities.
That look.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's right.
So let's take the next, what are we at? It is, if we can look at those for the next 10 minutes, I'll give you some time to read through on your own and see what questions, especially for those who are not familiar or who are less familiar, have and reflect on some of those guiding questions as well. So go ahead and we'll come back in about 10.
Did it work?
Yeah, yeah.
I just heard today.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Can you mute?
Yourself, please. And then can we post this on board docs? Too? Or when we come back?
Yeah,
though?
yeah.
Well, we have the other stuff.
Just kidding.
Just the public, like. Principals, they should be able to like do their work. Open meetings.
What's yours?
Yeah.
This work session, yes. I'm trying to see.
Is everyone all set?
Yes.
Okay, Cindy? You there?
I am here. Okay. So just want to get a little bit of reaction from those who have anything to share. What became clearer as you read through or skimmed those sections?
Does anyone have any feedback or questions?
It seemed more realistic. I think that I like this document because it sort of narrow our existing policies in a handbook that's only, I think it's 30 how many pages? 31 pages?
35.
35 pages versus that big thick book we got last year, Cindy, or 2 years ago.
Well, these are
But
just
this
our
is just the
bylaws.
bylaws.
Yeah,
The
we'd still have
understand
book
that
also
thick
the
book.
policy.
I understand that. I do understand that. What I'm saying is, it's an operational guide that's succinct, clear, and it also, I like the way you started it out, Cindy, talking about the listening and vision and values of the community. That's really key because we went through that process and new board members have not, but we adopted our goals based on the community's wants and needs and values, what they want kids to be able to do when they graduate from high school. So that's my first observation, that it's clear, it's distinct, and it also includes the code of conduct for board members, which is necessary because we've been getting so many leaks confidentially in the community, and that should not happen.
All right, thank you, Dr. Evans Brown, for going first and for that feedback. Who else?
You know, Madam Vice President, I'm not finding how to raise my hand right now, but I had a
That's
question.
okay. Chairwoman Rodriguez.
Thank you. Love when people use my title. Cindy, I had a process question. So reference to policy through, I believe it's 3113, when you're advising districts about adopting policies such as this, are they employing outside counsel outside of the council of BPS or of their school district? Because it sounds like policy 3113 might have ramifications for us in other areas of our life if our ethical behavior is relevant in those professional areas. And I'm just wondering if other school boards sought outside counsel.
Let me just make sure I am on the same. In 3113, got several screens going here, is the board
Code of
member
conduct.
concerns about board, okay, and which piece in particular? Because
Just the,
oh, I'm sorry.
it's okay.
Go ahead.
Just the idea that I think it's been referenced by the body that there's different like standards of code of ethics and other things that are governing. So unless this piece is you know what I'm trying to say, Cindy.
Yeah.
Thank you. That it may in fact kind of add another layer for us in terms of responsibility. And, you know, I have concerns just because of the nature of political discourse that it could potentially, that process or consenting to that process could expose us to greater liability in terms of like our jobs.
So I just want to make sure I'm clear. You are speaking to the code of conduct or to the board member concerns about board member behavior?
So I guess I would say,
which number?
Yeah, so I guess just to zoom out, I guess a larger process question would be, I know that we and you advise that this be reviewed by our general counsel, and I think that's really wonderful because a lot of it is very legal language, right? I think my question was, when you've advised other districts on these processes, was it just the legal counsel for the school district that looked at it, or were there other councils?
I think that varies by school district and how they typically, what their typical process is for reviewing policy. And it would also be a discussion among board members. You know, once any general counsel goes through to make any recommendations on where there might be, you know, if there is anything that doesn't comply or may give pause, then once you have that, then it's up to the board then also to decide what to do with the language, still remaining within the law. So if we're talking about the code of conduct, that's the code of conduct that you already have in place, that's already adopted by the board. The only changes that that our team put in there were the little addition to responsible for more than the students that live within our district or within where I do, or in the district from which I was voted. And then the last one about recusal for campaign contributions. And those two were just borrowed straight from the governance framework. Again, that will be for you all to discuss whether to keep, delete, or modify those. As far as the process for concerns about board member behavior, the truth of the matter is that there will be conflict. There is. Leslie, Rodney, and I all have served on boards, and we know this. The important piece is not absolutely what the process for dealing with them, that it absolutely is what we just put here in writing, but that you have one. Because and what I would say, and this goes to the whole being grounded and having footing to move forward. It's not about, just as it said in the preamble, it's not about it's not about punishment. It's about working together as a board. You might find a different way to go about it, but what I don't believe you have anything. I couldn't find anything in your bylaws to deal with board member conflict. So this is a starting point for you all to look at and consider. Our recommendation is that you have something now.
Thank you, Cindy.
You bet. Hopefully that was responsive to your question. Dr. Evans Brown, I see your hand.
Yes, please. We have Mary Scarpine here on this panel, our legal counsel. I would like for her to chime in, particularly for pages 33 through 34.
Thank you, President Brown. Yeah, some of the stuff that is noted in here, I will say, is actually in conflict and not permitted in New York State. Such as there is nothing under New York State education law that authorizes a school board and or the Commissioner of Education to censure or reprimand a board member. There are different elements that really have to be looked at, I think, much more closely, and to ensure that it is in alignment with what's permissible in New York State specifically. There certainly can be ramifications for board member misconduct. Both the school board and the Commissioner of Education can take action. The school board can apply to the Commissioner of Education. The school board can also bring charges and hold a hearing itself for certain official misconduct. But that is something that there are procedures set forth that we can follow. And certainly I welcome having further discussions with the board on those and what would be proper for us in our forum and moving forward. And I guess just to respond to board member Rodriguez's point as well, if there ever was action taken against a board member or efforts to remove a board member, I as general counsel for the district would not be handling it. It would be outside counsel in that perspective, just because it would be obviously a conflict for me. So I would not be involved in that. When it has happened before, because there was a board member that was removed by the Commissioner of Education upon application from the school board.
And Mary, I appreciate that. And I feel like I know that. And that's why I reference that if there is any additional language that would impact us in that way, that maybe we might, as a group later, after Cindy clarified the process with other districts, that we might want to discuss who we might have review it.
Perfect. And that's, I welcome this discussion and like the further exploration of including stuff within the bylaws itself as well. But that's just to kind of, I did see the sentiment reference, so I just wanted to put that out there so everyone was aware that we do just have to make sure that we comport with what's permissible here.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Mary.
I had a question.
Oh, Vice President Zulich.
I do overall like the way this document, the newer document, is organized. Like it kind of the way the bullet points, it seems easy to access for me. I did have some concerns with the new policy 3113. I mean, we could talk about that at a future time. It, it expanded pages compared to what we had last week, which it kind of was more the communication norms between board members. For this specific area, I think I'm a lot more comfortable with that guidance. But
Yeah, yeah. And so I think what we decided to do was to go ahead and put a more complete process in there for you all to respond to and have that further discussion. So yeah, and I think that that'll be definite conversation for you all to have. And to also just give yourselves what I would recommend in that policy too, because it is a lot to absorb, and we would fully anticipate that you would make sure that it complies with New York state law. I think I started to mention at the beginning, we did our best to try to help assure that we were within state code, but we would never say that we're going to get it perfect. So definitely wise to have that done and then to decide what works best for you all. But yeah, it was just a more complete version of a potential policy to recommend.
Vice President Everhart, may I propose that board members can provide feedback, written feedback, sent to probably Chief Amos. Will be able to compile this and send it to Cindy. And then Cindy will be able to work with our legal counsel to make sure that
we were gonna make some different recommendations, if that's all right. If we may, just kind of tell you how we would offer this to become the board's process rather than a coach process. Is that acceptable?
Well, I kind of feel like Cindy, Leslie, and Rodney, did you look at our state laws when you compiled this? Because it kind of should have been done first to look at the state laws and make sure you compare it.
Yep, we reviewed state law, and to be honest, I have found in censure policy references, I believe, in NISBA work as well. So I'm not absolutely so yes, we did, but we are
right.
not.
I did see the code of conduct in the NISBA handbook, but I didn't see so much censorship as to what we can say, and it seems a little more censored than what NISBA offers.
Okay. No, I'm not suggesting that it is the same as NISBA policy. I am, but yeah, that we've looked as we're working. Rodney and Leslie I am also working with Rochester. And I know that was a question, by the way, I think that came up last time about regarding committees, which we don't, but Rochester did go through a policy diet, at which point they sunset they only have audit committee remaining, just to answer that question while we were talking about it. But yeah, so I have not been able to find any legal, we've had the same conversations about the legality of that.
Okay. But the good thing is we do have legal representation. And so for your process, do you think it would be helpful, at least for the bylaws, to run it through our legal first, and then present it to us as a board, so that way then we can respond and write down what we feel and our questions?
Yeah.
Because it seems like a better first step than to catch these little legal hiccups along the way.
So yeah, so that how about I just tell you what we were going to recommend, and that the options that we usually present is that that for some boards, they ask the board president to work with the rest of board leadership to review the draft and bring recommendations to the full board. And that is often after legal counsel has looked through it. So I guess I would say, yes, have legal counsel look through it to make sure that what you are responding to is indeed valid per state law.
Right, first.
And then
legally.
whether it, yes, and then it can be, the option can be that the board president and vice presidents work together through that document that council has looked through to bring forth recommendations to the board. There could be an ad hoc committee, or it could continue to be a committee of the whole to respond. So I would leave that in your court to determine how to proceed next. And then we, of course, are not going to just drop the ball and run. We would be here to support in whatever way was needed to continue the work forward.
We appreciate that. Thank you so much, Cindy.
Certainly.
Board members, anyone have any questions or comments on what you read so far? Board member Hawkins?
Yes, still caught up on, I'm still caught up on the difference between school affairs and general control as far as board members. Can you elaborate?
I didn't fully hear the question.
On student affairs and general control as far as board members?
What page?
It's on 6, and then it jumps again on page 32. As far as new policy 4000, we're responsible for general control and supervision of public schools of the city school district. And then in 6 it says basically we don't have no authority over school affairs, but we're the ones that's going into the schools and speaking with principals and things. So I just need some clarity on that.
So if I'm understanding the question accurately, it is where is board authority in at play in school affairs?
Yeah,
And
I'm just trying to figure out what's the difference between the two there.
yeah, so I just a high level answer to that, and this will be something that you will all want to discuss, is that what we're really trying to do throughout this is differentiate between board work and superintendent work. Just in a nutshell, the board determines the what, the where are we going? They do that through the goals and guardrails that the board has adopted. So that is the prioritized next steps that the superintendent is taking toward success for all students, right? Toward that ultimate vision of what the school district is there for. So once the board establishes that, which you all have, then it's up to the superintendent to determine how. How are we going to get there? What strategies are we going to use? What essentially those things that are going to they're going to map out and strategize how to get to that destination to achieve those goals, honor those guardrails. The board's focus then is to verify that there's actually progress being made. And that happens with the board progress monitoring, receiving those monitoring reports to see if the reality, if the performance of the district, if students are actually achieving what the board has asked the superintendent to have them achieve through the goals. So So this keeps, if you've ever heard the above the line and below the line analogy, that the board stays above the line, they are governing. They are, and below the line is the managing, the actual day-to-day operations that are going to get them get to those goals. Is that helpful, responsive?
Yeah. For the most part,
Yeah. And I think as you have an opportunity to read more fully and absorb, it may become more clear, but continued questions are always welcome.
Any other questions or comments?
Oh, just me again. I just wanted to, again, I'm just looking over it, and I read a sentence from section 5.1 last week. I thought it was so important. We are losing this entire bulk of what we are doing. Like the tone of the new policy 3113 is saying when we're doing the negative, when we're undermining trust, when we're undermining focus, when we're, instead of what we should do. So I just want to read this again because I think it's important to elevate this section and keep this section. Understanding that the culture of the Buffalo Public Schools is set by the board, all members shall continuously commit to interact respectfully and civilly with each other and will not engage in personal attacks against their colleagues or any other constituency. Board members, whether elected from a district seat or a citywide seat, shall act as a unified board focused on the improvement of the Buffalo Public Schools as a whole. And it does mention the confidentiality and all that. And then this language is removed, which I think is a mistake. When a board member has concerns about another board member's conduct and believes the board member has violated conflicts and interest board policy, state or federal law, it is the responsibility of the concerned board member to discuss the alleged violation. So, I mean, myself, I'm just going to repeat it because I think it's that important. I really like the language specifically from 5.1 communication norms between board members. And I mean, like what Mary said, the state does have, I mean, there's already things in place to have a complaint against a board member or the state to remove a board member. So I myself, I like the new document minus policy 3113. And then again, in the future, we do put documents on board docs. So I don't know if you're aware, we do have members of the public on. So when there's the draft document was on board docs, the new one is there now as of like 5:30, but then the public and, you know, other district committees are kind of lost when we're here, and they're not provided that new document. So if we could, again, in the future, get that. Thank you.
Thank you for your feedback. You bet.
I'd make a couple of clarifying points, just a couple of things I've been hearing. I just want to make sure that everybody understands that in the format that Cindy presented tonight, you know, there's absolutely no decision making. We do want you all to read very tightly and thoroughly through that, have discussions, and you know, before you make any decisions about it. To the point you just made, Board Member Zulich, about the 5.1, I think the difference between what we gave you tonight and the 5.1 was around sort of actionable consequence for someone who chooses to operate in a way that is not student outcomes focused repeatedly. So just understanding that, and also that policy is around censure, not censorship. And I think that sometimes gets people a little frightened when they read that there's, you know, some attempt to censor an individual board member. That has absolutely nothing to do with trying to, you know, clap down on someone's right to free speech. What it does have to do with is the board itself. And one of your guardrails is, you know, to abide by the student code of conduct. It gives you some measure as a board, as a body, to control the work of the board if one person, a couple people, whatever, are not, you know, like upholding that. So it's about taking, you know, like looking at your non-statutory, so there's no violation of state statute here. It's about taking a look at what are things that you have extended to each other as a privilege of being on your board as your board. So I just wanted to clarify
Okay,
those couple of
I
pieces.
just actually, our legal counsel just gave me from NISBA, our state guidance, section 655, may a school board member be censured, reprimanded, or suspended? No. And then there's a paragraph and case law. So while the free speech protections afforded by the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution allow for the censuring of public officials for their bad acts, nothing in the New York education law authorizes either a school board or the Commissioner of Education to censure or reprimand a school board member. So, I mean, I'm going to say we should strike that. That's my recommendation.
I would second that.
What? I'm sorry?
You're
Well, I
muted,
was-
Leslie.
Yeah, I just would encourage you, as y'all work together to refine this document, to come up with what works for you all as a team, right?
Well, yeah,
The
I'm
point
not
is that we want you all to be a
state law,
team.
though.
Huh? Of course, of course. If this is not permissible, then again, it's within this board, this current iteration of the board, for you all to come up with a way that, you know, you're all going to be, you know, you're all going to act together to maintain your focus as you say you want it. So
Okay.
that is
No, I mean,
your
I think
responsibility.
And I just wanted to clarify, as someone who comes from a community that is often, I don't know the word I'm looking for, Leslie, but in New York State, what someone defines as violating for my community. So we're not like really like nitpicking and saying, oh, well, we don't want to work together, but that the terms seem to be exceptionally subjective, and then creating such a long process with all of the steps, I think is what Madam Vice President thought might be something we need to put more thought around, especially if it an advice of counsel violates our existing law.
Absolutely. And there is no argument from this team on that whatsoever. And we completely accept perhaps the language around censure. We have it defined as just a title and then a revocation of privileges like parking spots or what have you. We have no qualms about you
Love the
removing
parking piece, Cindy. Love the parking piece.
yeah, right. So we have no qualms whatsoever about you removing that, striking it completely. We have just offered up a set of ideas for you all to respond to. We didn't anticipate for anybody to make a decision on anything tonight. This wasn't anticipated to be we wanted a gut check and then to be able to give you all next steps so that you can proceed to make it what this board is comfortable with and what makes sense for this board.
Can I just
So,
chime in, Cindy,
yeah,
and let everyone know we
absolutely.
have about 5 minutes left?
Yep. So with that, our recommendation would be to have general counsel go ahead or whomever you all want to review just to ensure that there is nothing else that that is out of line. And again, I'm going to clarify: we are not married to this document in any way, shape, or form. This is yours. And go through that and then determine, and I don't know if that is you, Vice President Everhart, since this is your committee, to determine how to proceed with whether it is a subcommittee, a committee of the whole, how you want to collect feedback. That I'm going to turn to you to, or whomever is appropriate to help the board decide those next steps. And just thinking about it, mindful to the overall timeline of work that you have ahead as far as stepping this out toward whatever
Yeah, I
changes,
think Dr.
adoption,
Mubenga's
et cetera.
suggestion to run it through legal first, and then for the executive team to meet with the rest of the board, and we all come together to look at all of the proposed conduct new rules together.
Yep, and
then,
everything
yeah.
else,
Agreed.
everything else in there too. Yep, and yeah, definitely do a good walkthrough of everything and individually as well.
Perfect.
Just so you all are clear.
Perfect.
And
Does
then,
anyone else have any other questions or comments before we wrap up?
I just completely agree with that course of action that you just suggested, Vice President Everhart.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Board Member Scott.
It's a very good start. Thank you, Council of Great City Schools
Thank you.
coaches.
our pleasure. Absolutely.
Okay,
Thanks for having
so
us.
thank you. Thank you so much for coming. And thank you for all of your hard work. That concludes our executive session for tonight. And do I turn it back over to Dr. Mubanga, or does Vice President Zulich hammer us out?
You can just dismiss us. We're done. Thank you.
We're dismissed. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.